So, hello, everybody. Welcome to this semester's first Capstone chat. We are very lucky to have Bruno Pierce with us today. Bruno graduated in 2012 from the Comm department with a minor in graphic design. And in my mind, he's always one of those very visual folks. Um, that's always what I remember about you, Bruno. You were always doing cool motion graphics and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he is coming into us today from Portland.
Yeah.
And his career has done, as he said, all things growth marketing, which is content, even doing his own personal artwork, and just working with a lot of different clients. Most of his career, he's been a freelance person, but he is now working full time in the corporate realm. But I'm going to just kind of leave it over to him. And for those of you that haven't done this before, we're just going to give Bruno some time to tell a story, and then you can ask your questions afterwards. All right, here we go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Just wanted to give you guys a little icebreaker there. I am Bruno. Let me share my screen with you here. Made a little presentation for you, so it's a little easier to see and maneuver. Okay. Can everyone see that? Yes. Okay, cool. So as Monica said, I graduated in 2012. I currently am in Portland, Oregon. And my title, I guess, if you want to, put pen to paper, is multimedia marketing specialist. That's kind of what I call myself. I've been doing this for about 15 years. So even while I was in school, I've been doing this. I started out as a content creator and a YouTube partner back in 2007. And that actually landed me an internship at Ustream. And that turned into a full-time gig with a company called Retail Next. I eventually left there, started my own business. And recently had clients like LinkedIn and DoorDash. So I've done pretty much everything when it comes to media. And I guess this is more of a new title that's coming out, especially in the corporate realm. I more so would consider myself all of these titles, graphic designer, video producer, motion graphic artist, animator, illustrator. I also do podcast hosting. I'm a video game analyst. I run my own company, and then I also produce my own music. So this is a really hard list to look for jobs with, because it's like I could do a lot of things. And you can see my LinkedIn and my site down there if you guys ever want to check that out. But when I graduated, I basically had an internship my senior year at Shepherd with Ustream. And for those of you who don't remember Ustream, it was a live streaming platform that was basically before Twitch. I remember actually going to the CEO and mentioning that, hey, video games would be a great thing to stream. It's something that I'm interested in. And he basically shut it down and said, no, we're not interested in that. And at the time, there was a rival company that was doing it. They were called Justin TV. And they decided to keep going with the live streaming, and eventually changed their name to Twitch. So Ustream was eventually bought out by IBM Cloud. But the important thing with starting there were the connections that I made, because those connections led me to be able to do a lot of freelance with companies like Pride of Maui out of Maui. They do basically boat tours and stuff like that. I also work with a retail analytics company called Retail Next, where I was the associate director of design and basically did motion graphics and video projects for them, as well as ran their graphic design. After I left Retail Next, I decided to start my own company called Pierce Pop Art, and that's where I sold a bunch of my own artwork. I sold merchandise like t-shirts, stickers, enamel pins, and even fuse bead art. So I was doing fuse bead art as well, and going to local, Comic Cons and craft shows and whatnot. But I still had clients that were kind of wanting more of the corporate stuff that I had done. So I decided to kind of merge the two together and create Pierce Unlimited. And that included clients like LinkedIn and DoorDash, as well as some nonprofits and small businesses along the way. And I've done that since 2019 throughout the pandemic. And now I'm heavily focused in our flagship product of Pierce Limited, which is Quit the Build. It started off as a Facebook group and moved into more of a media company. So we're really developing that right now. One of the things I think I get told a lot is, you're a jack of all trades, which I think some people can be put off. I was put off by that at first, because I didn't want to be a master of none, right? Like, I didn't want to have that tagline, but apparently there's a couplet to the quote that goes, but oftentimes better than a master of one. And I think that that's really helped me in my career to be able to have such a wide array of expertise, whether it's graphic design, motion graphics, or video production. I've done it all, but it's all been under the umbrella of marketing. And multimedia in that aspect, it really covers everything. When I'm looking at something, I might get a print project one day and then move into a digital project of something like that. But like I said, I've worked closely with marketing throughout the years, and marketing's main priority at its core is communication. Under that, obviously they're supporting sales, right? We're trying to get money into the door. So whether that's advertisements, or just awareness in general, those things have to be created by somebody that knows design, knows communication. And being well-rounded in all of these has really helped me be a great team asset wherever I go, because I can kind of jump in and fill the gap where needed. So I would say, like, my work skill, on a daily basis, these are the things that I get tested on. Obviously, communication, is a day-by-day thing, whether it's just answering an email or trying to figure out the best way to communicate an idea. And oftentimes that's what my job is. It's transforming complex communication into easily digestible visuals so that a client can understand something that might be a little bit more complex and harder to explain. Graphic design is a part of that. Like, it's a huge part of everything I do. I think that there's not a day that goes by where I'm not doing something involved with graphic design. And that goes, with motion graphics, right? So like, if I'm doing marketing or social media, there's got to be graphic created for that. And then I also work with like video stuff, even apps and whatnot, like Lumen 5. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of that or anything. I'll get to there. My software usage, this is what you can kind of see. Illustrator, I know Monica's probably talked to you about Illustrator. I know a lot of people probably prefer Photoshop, but I'll say Illustrator is my ride or die. Right? Like, I'm going there every day because I know that Illustrator, if I create something in Illustrator, I can easily use those files everywhere in Photoshop, After Effects, Premiere Pro. Doesn't matter. It's a very versatile program. There's some certain things that it can't do, obviously, but that's what Photoshop is for. But for the most part, I'm using Illustrator 99% of the time. And then I also use things like Adobe Live, and Ableton Live and Adobe Audition for like music production. And then I also run my own websites through Wix. You might use WordPress or something like that. And also, I don't know if you guys are using anything like PowerPoint or Canva to create those images that you might be using for class. A lot of marketing companies are using those, and so oftentimes I'm creating templates and whatnot in those programs for other people to use. So the apps that I use and whatnot on kind of a daily basis, Asana. I don't know if you guys use any project tracking apps or anything like that. I'd highly recommend you get familiar with them. It's just a great tool versus using something like email or anything like that. Zoho I use for social media automation. I've also used things like Later. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with social media automation. There's pros and cons to it. I'm sure you guys have heard. There's certain algorithms that pick up on social media automation as if it were bots, and so it's still important for someone like myself to be able to post physically on those apps and whatnot. So I do that. I also use a lot of stock photography and video from Shutterstock or Envato to kind of fill in the gaps where I might not have something. And then every business has their own back end system that you end up having to use for something. One of the great things I would say is you guys are probably familiar with TikTok. You've heard of it, right? That's a social media thing. Use it for something other than the funny videos. Get on there and start searching through some of the professional things, or grab yourself a professional account where you can see that stuff on your For You page, because you can get a lot of great tips on there, a lot of great websites, and just marketing knowledge in general from the site. I guess you're probably wondering, like, what classes meant the most to me, like what were my top 3. And I'd have to say, first, media studies with Dr. Williams. I learned about semiotics, and that taught me a lot about media, how to analyze it and tell future trends, especially with like video games and stuff that I'm interested in. It's really helped me with my podcast, and then also knowing what technologies to get into, what programs, that kind of stuff. Of course, advertising and imagery with Monica, that is a must. I mean, I still reference that class to this day and I'm sure every student comes in and says that, so I'm probably not going to be the only one. But it did teach me the importance of communication through marketing media, which is ultimately what I do. And then, outlier here, visual thinking from the art department was a killer class that I went through, and it taught me composition, how to make visually interesting art, which really helped me in my personal business, and it also helped me in my corporate business. I remember doing a project for visual thinking, and it was, I kind of like, I don't want to say like it was a softball pitch and I, tried to swing it out of the park. That's what it felt like. But I got the remark that it was hospital art, and that both hurt and made me think a little bit, because I was like, ooh, I don't want to be hospital art when I'm doing something that's supposed to be artistic. But then again, I also thought, somebody's got to make that hospital art, right? That somebody gets paid to do that. And so I think that my career has been both hospital art and the other side of that, where I've tried to do something unique. And I'll go into a little bit about like some of the accomplishments that I've had. My mom always said, make yourself an I love me book, and that's something when you go into like a job interview, right? Like, pat yourself on the back a little bit. When I started on YouTube, I amassed 25,000 subscribers and was one of the top 100 comedy channels in 2008. Super proud of that. It really set me on the path that I needed to get some of the internships and whatnot that I had with Ustream. And then I also won a silver advertising award, an Addy award, for my motion graphic that I did for Why You Should Hire Me for the comm department. I was super proud of that too. And then I also had a site of the day on Adobe Muse. My sticker sales from Pierce Pop Art were $25,000 alone just in sticker sales, which is pretty good when you're selling them at $3 or $4 a pop. So it's not bad in a year, right? I did 2 Kickstarters and got 400% over the goal. I was really, really proud of that. In 2021, we were the #1 leisure podcast on Good Pods. Our podcast Quit the Build. And then Quit the Build, our TikTok currently has 85,000. It's probably more since I wrote this. This is a while ago. And 25,000 on YouTube. And I also became a verified Spotify artist. So I'm really into all types of content creation, as you can see. That's why multimedia kind of encompasses all of it. When I started making videos, there weren't a lot of people making YouTube videos at the time. Like, I was kind of weird for doing it. And I was even weirder for doing video game content at the time, because there definitely wasn't a lot of people in 2007 that were doing that. But I did a lot of stuff in the YouTube space that wasn't being done, like VTuber animation, the stuff that you see now where you get character animations over your face. That was something I did 5 or 6 years ago before it got really big. I did voice acting over Xbox Live and created characters to go along with these projects. And then that helped me get the opportunities that I had, because I knew the space in which I was working more than some of the people that were actually in the space. And that always felt awesome. That little YouTube down there, that's my old YouTube. I don't upload stuff anymore, but you can see some of the previous stuff that I did. Pierce Pop Art, like I said before, we did a lot of vendor booths. I did those at local comic conventions, arts and crafts festivals, things like that. You can see there's a picture there of all of the things that we offered. And if I didn't, like, for something like t-shirt design, I got that done through Amazon merch. So I didn't really have to do that I didn't really have to produce that in-house or anything like that, pardon me. And I would just have like an app there with a QR code, and would basically say, hey, you can, get these designs online. I offered things at the actual convention that you could only get there. And then of course I had an online store where I offered stickers. I was on Amazon merch and Etsy. And then we also did a Kickstarter where we turned some of the most popular designs into pins. And that one was really interesting for me, because it kind of took everything that I learned from communication, put it to the test, right? Like making my own pitch, making my own crowdfunding thing. So I set a small goal. I did the research to figure out, like, how much does an enamel pin cost? How much are they going for? What can I buy them for? How much do I need? That kind of thing. So I had to do a lot of research and go into like emailing manufacturers from China, because that's like the only place they make enamel pins, and figuring out like that entire process was daunting, but it was very, very rewarding to have 4 designs completely crowdfunded and produced under that. Not only do it once, but actually do it twice. That was just another one of those pat me on the back type things. I love that story. And then that ultimately led to like Pierce Unlimited, basically having these clients like DoorDash, Caviar, and LinkedIn solicit my expertise in whatever it may be, whether it's graphic design, motion graphics. And that's where I've always been a huge benefit to these marketing companies because I can kind of offer them a wide array of services that would usually take several people to do. So there is, I would say, a benefit out there to knowing a lot of different things instead of just saying, I'm just going to focus my attention on Photoshop or Illustrator, or, know the entire Adobe gamut. That's why, the comm department usually has like a class for each one, like learn them all. Don't just like skate by with it. And I did a lot of this learning on my own too, through YouTube and whatever was available at the time. When I worked for DoorDash, I did a lot of things like presentations, although they may be boring. Things like this presentation that I'm giving you right now, somebody's got to design it. So a lot of times I'm making corporate people look better in front of potential clients. That's kind of the gist of a lot of multimedia, is basically making things look better. And then I've done a lot of video projects and animation projects for them. DoorDash, I actually helped launch Dash Pass, which you may have seen on the app, which is actually really interesting. And it's just been, it was a really fun time to work with them and get to see kind of the back end of DoorDash and how they work. And that's one of the interesting things about both DoorDash and LinkedIn, is that these companies not only market to consumers like yourselves, but they also market to other people. They market to companies, they market to recruiters, they market to talent acquisition. All these types of things have to have their own marketing behind them. And so sometimes not all the marketing that you see, for example, going back to DoorDash has, it's has to market to you, the consumer, who are actually on the app. It's got to market to the people who are dashing, who want a job. It's got to market to the vendors to say, hey, put your stuff on our app. And it really trickles down as to what can be possible and what needs marketing within these businesses. And that's a lot of stuff that I did with LinkedIn with some of these back end stuff. Big thing here for you guys. This is just a little trade secret I know from working with LinkedIn. Take at least one skill assessment test on LinkedIn, and I guarantee you're going to maximize your potential for recruiting capabilities and for application processes through the platform. A lot of times when you go on LinkedIn, you're going to see something that says something like 200 people applied for this job. Well, the recruiter tool that recruiters use within LinkedIn has this one little box, and that one little box is filter applicants who have completed at least one skill assessment test. And that number drops roughly from about 5 million applicants, or 5 million potential pool of candidates, to about 1 to 2 million. That's a huge number of people that are missing the boat on that one offering, and LinkedIn is really leaning into it. So if you want to make more out of the platform, take a skill assessment test. They have them in all types of things like Photoshop, Illustrator, even After Effects and Premiere Pro, I think. So tons of stuff there. Definitely look at that. I think a question that a lot of people ask, especially for like freelance, was, did the pandemic affect me? Short answer, no. People still have to have jobs at LinkedIn, and people still ordered food on DoorDash. So that was, I was one of those people that kind of was right in the middle, but I still decided to trade that in for a corporate job because of this guy. That's my son, Koa Josiah Pierce. He was born recently, May 24th. And I decided to kind of go back and have something a little bit more stable. So I decided to join A local team at a local company called Rivermark Community Credit Union. At the time, I was being approached by some video game companies, but I didn't want the stress that came along with that. I wanted something that was a little less stressful. And the great thing about working at some place not as exciting as DoorDash, obviously, like I'm sure DoorDash is alluring, but like working at a bank holidays rock. I get every bank holiday off. That's pretty awesome. I still get to work from home, and I get fun opportunities like TV commercials, billboards. I'm actually working on a TV commercial right now. And it's a great work-life balance, you know, that allows me to work on other things like Quit the Build, like my own personal passion projects. You know, Quit the Build is something I started in 2015 as a Facebook group, and it kind of turned into a podcast, which turned into a full-blown network. We're expected to, this is our first year really doing revenue. 2022 is really, and we're projected to hit 10,000 in our first year, which I'm very, very proud of. We've got 110,000 followers across social media, and we've amassed over 15 million views on social platforms, 11 million views on YouTube alone. And you know, it was an interesting process to go from podcast to kind of launching a website supported by Patreon, to opening it up to like a network, which we did in 2021, and then opening up to advertising and partnerships this year. We're recently sponsored by Winner, which is pretty awesome, you know, and that's how a lot of this money, you know, aggregates. I'm sure you guys are aware of advertising, you know, or you know, revenue sharing and whatnot. But you know, between our website adverts and podcast sponsors, all that kind of stuff, you know, it's become quite a budding business for us. But we do have to be diligent on all platforms in order to be successful. So, you know, this type of thing requires a big community. And a lot of people might ask, like, well, you know, how many, you know, views, you know, what does that, you know, what does that mean? And I would say that at the end of the day, a good community is more valuable to us than virality, because 15 million views is great, but I'm more interested in turning those 15 million views into money in our pocket some way. You know, whether that's, you know, a subscribe button or Patreon or whatever it may be. You know, if I have 10 people that are supporting us with $5 a month, that's more important to me than a million views every day with no monetary value. So it's been interesting to know how to go about this process and see the boost in community, because we're more community focused. And then, of course, with a growing list of partners that help share our vision, we're creating a greater reach with our audience through QTV. And this is something that I've all been pioneering behind the scenes of my normal day-to-day job. So this would be my side hustle, as it were. This is the thing that I get to showcase clients when they come to me through Pierce Unlimited and say, what can you do for us? I can point to this and say, this is what I can do. You know, one of the really cool things that we recently got to do was interview some really big wigs in the industry. We got to interview Don Traeger, who was the co-founder of EA Sports. And he's actually the voice of the original Paperboy in the arcade game. So cool. Like, he lent his voice to the game, produced these early games on the Atari and obviously Nintendo systems. And then we had an interview with Roger Hector, who was the president of Universal Studios. He's been an executive at Walt Disney World and EA, Sega, all those places. Just a really interesting guy. So I think that the opportunities that we've had through this have been really amazing. We got to go to the virtual E3, not the real E3, but the virtual one. And we're hoping that we're going to be able to go to the real one coming up. So, you know, that's pretty much a long-winded way of saying don't work long hours for someone else. You know, work long hours for yourself. Don't let corporate world take advantage of you. You know, and as we're wrapping up here before we get to the questions, the working process for it is the same, whether it's freelance or corporate. I'm still doing briefing, I'm still doing research. The brainstorm and creative process might be a little more lonely when you're freelance, and it might be a little more involved when you're in the corporate world. And the launch is the same way. You know, at a certain point, you have to export and say, I'm finished with this project. Here you go. On the corporate side, I tend to have to do a little bit more of the launching. And on the freelance side, I was more like, here you go, you take it and do with it what you will. So there's benefits, pros and cons to both of those. And then the big pros and cons, I would say, between freelance and corporate world is freelance freedom, you know, the ability to work on different projects, set my own schedule and my place of work. That's awesome. Of course, you know, the pandemic really changed how we all work. So that's, you know, look at us meeting now. And then the potential to make more than a salaried position is, you know, I'm uncapped in what I can make freelance. But there's ebbs and flows, right? With any type of business. Without, you know, a salary and benefits, there's no guarantee next month as to what I'm going to get. And taxes, they suck. They really, really, really suck when you're a freelance person. There's no getting around that. Like they're absolutely horrible. And you realize how much the government takes when you have to pay it in a lump sum. It's pretty disheartening. But on the flip side, you know, the salary and benefits for corporate are pretty awesome. Like there's nothing like having a steady flow of money and a benefits package to make sure that, like, you know, you're taken care of and that your family's taken care of. And a lot of these places now have great benefits packages. So I'm really happy to work in a place that, you know, offers that as well. And then I would say the ability to develop projects and branding. You're more likely to do that in the corporate sector. I don't really have a say in how DoorDash uses their brand. If they're using it wrong, or if I don't agree with how something is, I don't really get a say. But I get a say in the corporate world when I work full time. But then again, that comes with less freedom, right? Like I have to be at work at a set time, and you know, that might not be a big deal to you. And then again, of course, work culture, that's different and difficult depending on the industry, the team. You're going to find some people that you get along with, you're going to find some people you don't get along with, just like in your classes. It's no different. And hopefully it's, you know, hopefully you are on the benefit and in a good, you know, work culture like I am. Excuse me. I really love our culture and the communication that we have. You'll notice that a lot of times when you go to apply to a job, there might be poor communication, and you know, that's a red flag. This is kind of like a red flag, regardless if you're freelance or if you're in the corporate world. Poor communication, if it's bad from the start, it's not going to get better when you join. Unless you're the communication liaison for the entire company, you know, and I've not seen that position listed. If there's a high turnover rate at the job or a rush to fill a position, that's a red flag. It's a red flag, guys. And then if they only mention work or expectation, or uses language like occasional weekends, evenings, or you know, that kind of thing, red flag. That should be somewhat expected of you in terms of, like, if there's something big, if you have to state that in your job description, red flag. Conversely, there's some green lights, right? Like if they're good at communication, if they're communicating well and promptly and not several days past when you emailed them, if they're available, you know, through things like Zoom or just to connect with you at any time of the day. flexibility as well. I mean, your employer should be flexible with reasonable demands and requests, and they should be excited to have you guys. So if you see any of these in terms of like when you're applying for a job, take that as a good sign, right? Like they want you on board, they're flexible for you, and they've got great communication. Those are things that are hard to find. So keep that in mind. And then the one thing that I tend to live by is this saying. I know Dr. Williams has a great story of 2 pottery classes. I'm not sure if you've heard this one, where one class was taught to make as many pots as they possibly could, and the second class was taught to make the perfect pot, spend the entire semester making the perfect pot. Well, you can guess by the end of the semester, the class who had been trying to make the perfect pot could barely make a pot. They barely got one done. But the people who made as many pots as they possibly could were doing far better than the other class. And it's just the idea of, I can't let my perfectionist attitude kind of hinder me from getting a project done or a product out. Even if I'm not so happy with it, my level of my standards might be different than someone else's. So it's always good to get feedback from other people and say, hey, what do you guys think? Even if you are a freelancer alone, or if you're working in a corporate position alone. But thanks guys so much for your time. I appreciate it. We'll open the floor to questions. Thanks, Monica. Especially, she put me on the like right career path to like get to where I'm at today. Like she was like, go check out graphic design. And I was like, okay. And then that like changed everything. And then Dr. Williams was a huge inspiration to me as well. He said to me, I remember so clearly, he said, you're going to have multiple jobs in your life. You're going to be successful, but you're going to have multiple jobs. And, damned if he wasn't right. So, oh, anyway, I'll stop sharing here. And I know a lot of people have a question, so we'll just go from the top. Hopefully, you guys remember where you were at, and we'll start with Jack. What's going on, Jack?
Okay, so my question was, earlier on, you referred to, I think I wrote it down. You referred to project management.
Yeah.
What exactly is that? Could you explain that a little bit more?
So project management comes down to basically everything that's involved with getting a project out from start to finish. So that comes with the conception to completion. I use Asana in my project tracking, and that's kind of how I manage projects. There are certain titles out there called project manager, where that's your job, is to make sure people are doing what they're supposed to be doing and that all the pieces are fitting together. Because in something like production, I might work with a videographer who's working on getting footage. I've worked with, fellow graduate Jason Smith. I'm sure you may have seen his, he was on a one of Monica's Capstone projects. Really great guy. I've worked with him to get footage, used his footage, and then there's a lot of project management that goes with that, like making sure that you're using the right filing systems. And every place is different, right? Every place is going to have their own system. But that's really everything involved from start to finish with a project and getting it out. So that might mean revisions, getting assets, and then just following the breadcrumb trail of back and forth that you'll get. Because believe me, marketing people are opinionated, and there's always going to be, we should put periods here. And then another person that says, no, we shouldn't put periods here. And then you'll literally go back and forth over something stupid like periods. And you'll wonder why they're paying you to do this, but whatever. That answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Robert, what's going on?
So I guess this is kind of like 2 questions, but for your podcast, what kind of games do you play, and what advice would you give to those looking to do podcasts
Yeah.
or like strategies?
Okay, so I mean, for our podcast, we actually do video game news. So we cover the gamut of all gaming news, and then we give our opinions on where we think that's going to go, the future of the gaming industry. They call me Bruno Stradamus because of a lot of the predictions that I've had, and that literally just comes down to media studies. You know, being able to recognize that type of stuff. As far as starting a podcast go, the first thing I'd say is get a good mic. It's pretty cheap to get a good mic and start recording yourself. The first episodes of any podcast are going to be cringe. Find a topic that you like and that you're passionate about, because you want to be able to talk about something a year from now or 6 months from now. The video game news landscape is changing every day, and there aren't too many people doing video game news podcasts, and if they are, it's typically tacked on to something like IGN or whatnot, and that's a little bit different than what we're trying to do. So my advice is definitely check out what other people are doing in the space who are doing it well through YouTube. A lot of it is getting out there and doing a lot of different things. So this is the success of our podcast is not just because I put out a podcast. You know, we put out a podcast to every major platform. We then, promote that via social media. We're live recording the podcast on YouTube as well. So you can join it on Tuesday nights at, live, and then we've got a website and everything to kind of back that up for it. So if you're doing your own podcast, make sure you're doing something that you're passionate about. Have someone there to bounce ideas off with you. It's so much easier to have someone else there to talk about these types of things versus just talking about it yourself. So hopefully that answered your question. Austin, you got a question?
Hello, Bruno. I have two simple questions.
What's going on?
Did you originally start your endeavors on your own, or did you have like a team or group of partners that had individual skill sets that they all brought to the table? Or would you sort of encourage a team versus yourself, or just give me some type of whichever you prefer? And then what kind of music do you produce?
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for the questions. I would say when I first started out content creation, there weren't a lot of people doing it. And that's one of the reasons why there are so many gaps in my content creation history. And I switched over to the corporate world is because I didn't have a support system. So I would say that first and foremost, a support system is more necessary than having a group of people that are willing to, produce content as well. And that can mean something as simple as like, hey, I'll repost your stuff every week, for you. I'll moderate your Twitch channel for you. That type of stuff is invaluable, and it helps grow a community. And eventually those types of connections can help work in a way that will benefit you. Would I advise you to go off and do it yourself? It depends. I would say every content creator that you see on YouTube starts themselves. They might have a team now. Mr. Beast has a team, all the big guys have, Ninja has a huge team behind him. It's not just him, although it looks just like him and he's the only person you see, similar to our TikTok. If you go on TikTok, you're going to see not my face, but Nick's face, my business partner. And that's something that where I felt, to answer your second question, yes, there are things that other people bring to the table. Obviously, I've got a wide knowledge of communication and the production aspect of these types of things. But for example, Brad, the other business partner for Quit the Build, he's pretty much a chemical engineer, not really associated with video games or anything. He plays video games a lot, and has a different perspective that he brings to the table that comes from an engineering mind, not from a designer mind, right? And that's what makes him a member to our team. Not only that, he's very business savvy. So if you find somebody that's willing to help you out and does have their own, niche of something, by all means, try and leverage that, and work together. Collaboration is always easier than trying to go alone, right? It's just like anything. And then your final question, as far as the music I produce EDM music. And then I also do a lot of live drumming and stuff for, like, I do it for my church and whatnot. So I do live music and then produce my own EDM music at home. I'm heavily influenced by like the 90s and stuff. So that kind of stuff. Yeah. Was that it? Okay. I think we're on Anna.
Hello. So my question is also kind of about music production.
Go ahead.
I do a little bit of production too, more kind of in the learning stage than anything. But I kind of wanted to ask if you found any ways to kind of take that expertise and use it in your career field that you're in now.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, actually. Everything I've done, I try to relate to a corporate sense. And although I may produce my own music for myself, that, I don't really care who listens to it or what people say. And I'm very much, just like yourself, learning. I'm always learning. I may say expertise, but expertise is knowing that you're not at the end of the road. You're only, as far as the road is going to take you at that time. And for me, it's been something that I've always been interested in, was jingle writing. I love jingles and stuff like that. I love the cheesiness of them and parodies. And with our sponsors through Quit the Build, I have had the opportunity to produce a jingle for Winner, the app. And then I'm getting ready to produce another one here coming up. We just got the green light to go ahead and do another one. So yes, you can take that and say, maybe create something more corporate-esque or more, radio friendly for, a jingle. Another thing that you could do is, I mentioned something like Envato or Shutterstock. There are tons of artists that put their music, that maybe they produce something, they didn't really like it, or maybe that's just all they really do is produce that type of music, and they put it up for others to use in a royalty-free fashion. You get paid from those royalties, right, when they sign up for that. So, with a huge library of music, you can begin to accrue passive income, what I call passive income. The however many dollars I get in my bank account from whenever I sell a t-shirt, it adds up, right? Like one sticker sale at $3 isn't that impressive. But if you've got 50 stickers at $3 and then 50 posters and then 25 pins, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you build a library of music that you can share, the chances of you getting a hit on something like that are greater, and people are more likely to check out more of what you've done if you offer that. So that's another way to make, in the interim, practice, put stuff out there. Don't try and perfect it. Like I said, somebody might think it's perfect to them, and might want to use it for something. Put it up there. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Ethan, what's going on?
Hi, yeah. I had a quick question about like the merchandise side of things. So, as someone who like wants to break into this industry, like specifically like creating my own brand, like hoodies and shirts, etc.
Yeah.
Like, what would you say is like the best way to start and get your name out there in terms of advertising? And also, can you speak about how competitive the present industry is?
So the I mean, obviously right now the industry is pretty saturated with a lot of people to make their name into it. That shouldn't dissuade you. But with so many things available for people to upload their designs, it can be overwhelming to see such a sea of people and wonder how you're going to make your mark. So the first thing I would recommend doing is getting involved in something like Amazon Merch or Teespring, something where they can produce the designs for you. Get a few designs up there. Then I would order your own designs, and I would maybe start something like an Instagram. And Instagram is great for fashion. That's why I chose Instagram. I didn't just choose anything, right? Like, I'm choosing Instagram because people are used to good looking people wearing fancy or stylish clothes. So then that would be the next thing I would say. I would say from there, I would start taking pictures of models, some of my friends wearing that type of stuff. If I didn't have a camera, I know that there's somebody in this pool of people right here that probably has a DSLR camera, or knows somebody that has a DSLR camera that could take a few pictures for you. You know, students are great for that, right? Like anybody that's trying to expand their portfolio. And then you can always trade, you know, services too, right? Like, hey, I'll, you know, produce this for you, whatever it may be. You know, so those would be the first two things that I would do, is get an awareness out on something like a social platform, and something free like Amazon Merch or Teespring. Start off free, then move into something like making your own website, you know, having a website like Wix or WordPress where you can sell, or even Shopify, I think has its own, you know, website thing that you can build with it. And then you really have to keep you being diligent with those types of things. You have to keep promoting your stuff, adding new designs, having your community involved in that, getting a vote, this or that, right? Those are great ways to engage a community on any platform. And you know, at a certain point, you may have to spend some advertising bucks, you know, retargeting ads. I'm sure you guys have maybe heard something like, you know, of that realm about, you know, playing with SEO. That's the best way to get your stuff out there. Understand search engine optimization, understand what people are searching, understand what people are doing in your market, and work your way up in tiers. Eventually, you're going to need to move to a bigger manufacturer of clothing that does all over prints, or does something that's more out of the box than just a static graphic, right? You're going to want to stretch yourself. So ask your fellow peers what they're doing, who's doing it well, and see if you can get in there. And then ultimately, like I said, word of mouth is a great way. Get your friends to wear your stuff, have them check it out, run a sale, and don't be dissuaded. Keep trying, put your stuff out there. You know, give away a t-shirt or two to somebody doing a video, maybe, you know, hey, you're doing a video, I got this great t-shirt, I want you to rep it for me in the video. That's a great way to get some promotion out there. All you got to do is just say, hey, if you wouldn't mind, put a little merch by, you know, Ethan down there, you know, whatever your tag might be, in the description. And that's a great way to get reciprocal value out of, you know, a deal like that. So Nate, yeah, Naomi.
Hi. Can you hear me fine?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure. As someone who's kind of like a fellow jack of all trades, I definitely find myself kind of like in a position, especially now that I'm thinking about like what careers I want to pursue in the future, of just like just feeling lost and like just feeling like hopeless in a lot of terms of like there's so many things I could do, but like what will I do? And I just like I wanted your like opinion about, you know, just like what you've done or thought of in the past. So
that's a great question, and don't feel like you're the only person that's currently experiencing that, because everyone is, right? Like everyone doesn't quite know the path that they want to take. And, you know, a lot of times, a lot of people will tell you that they kind of fell into the position that they're in. And what that means is it doesn't necessarily mean that they just all of a sudden woke up one day and were like, I'm going to do this. They kind of just decided, I'm going to take a shot at maybe, I think, you know, if you're a jack of all trades, I tend to look at some of my strongest trades and put those at the top and say, I think I'm most effective in this role. And then I might look for that role. So let's say it's graphic design. I know that I can do graphic design, and I know I can do more than a graphic designer with video. So I know I'll be an asset to a team because I know I'll be able to bring that aspect of knowledge to the team, you know, as a bonus, right? So I would say if you're struggling to find that right path, I would look at what your biggest strength is. There are a lot of terms out there that you can search for. There are marketing, sorry, that's my dog. There are marketing associates that start off. There are copywriters that actually just write. There's a lot of things that might pop up in your search. I would say look through LinkedIn, look at some of the jobs that you're interested in, and maybe look at people who are doing those jobs and see what they've done in their past. Because I guarantee you, there's might be 2 or 3 things in there that you're like, whoa, that person did not start out doing what they're doing at Facebook. They did something completely different. And the tech industry loves that, right? That's one of the reasons why I moved out to the West Coast initially. You know, when I graduated, I moved out to California because I knew that there were opportunities out here that I could have just by being out here. Now that's a little different now with the pandemic and basically companies opening the doors to remote workers. It really opens the door for you to kind of apply anywhere. And the second piece of advice, you know, kind of tagged along with that is don't be afraid if for some reason you think like, is this going to be a boring job? Nothing's set in stone, right? And sometimes, like I said, the boring jobs, you know, the bank job that might seem boring is actually really endearing. It's a great small team. I love that the fact at the end of the day, I get to go home. You know, and a lot of jobs aren't like that. A lot of jobs, once you pass 5, once you pass 6, want you to work in the evening, and that can be draining. So, you know, it's great for you when you're fresh out of college and you're trying to do it, but I'm 35 now and I'm tired. So hopefully I answer your question. Where were we at? I think we were on William.
Hi, so what tips do you have for like social media tracking and marketing using different platforms?
Okay. So easy question. I would say most of the automation programs have the tracking built into them. Things like Zoho, Later is another one, is a free one. I would use that to start off with. And a lot of times it's about, I think Hootsuite is another one. So a lot of these you have to pay for, but Later is one of the free ones that you can kind of jump in and get some analytics, get some stuff behind that to find when things are working. HubSpot, blogs.hubspot.com is also a great marketing website for anyone to use. They have great tools on what people are using, what's most effective, and that's going to be the easiest way to do it, is to just get involved with one of those programs. Like I said, still doesn't negate the fact that sometimes you have to post physically to see the results that you want instead of using those programs. So luckily they have those analytics tacked on. Luke.
Hey, so I have 2 questions. Do you have a favorite like video project you've worked on? And what are some ways that you've been able to overcome that kind of perfectionist mentality?
Okay, so favorite project that I've worked on. I've got a lot of stuff on my portfolio. I'll put the link in the chat there for you guys. I'll go through a couple of things that are on the portfolio. One of the things that I really enjoyed doing actually recently was this faux Spotify ad. Spotify came out with these podcast ads, and I thought they were really funny. And there was this one guy that like drove out into the middle of nowhere and like put on this podcast app and is sitting back on his car listening to the podcast, and I thought that'd be really funny if our podcast was on there, like he drove out there. So I decided to take that video, strip all the audio off of it, and then build it up and recreate it from scratch. So I added in all of the audio design that you hear within the video ad. And then it just came out really well. It was just a fun project for me to be like, can I do this? Can I take something that has a set, audio design, strip it and add something back to it, like my own little personal design project for school, right? Like that was one of my favorite ones. Recently, for Rivermark, I'm working on a TV ad. And that I'm really excited about. I've always wanted to have an ad on TV. I've had ads all over the internet, but never one on TV yet. So to be able to kind of check that off the bucket list is always nice. And then what was your final question? What was the last one?
What are some ways you overcame your perfectionist mentality?
Yes. That's very hard, and still to this day I struggle with it. I think it comes with a knowledge of the space that you're in and the time frame that you have. A lot of times I don't have the time that I want, right, to complete something. So I kind of have to say, what is the most bang I can get for your buck? And not everybody wants you to spend 25 hours on a project that should take maybe 25 minutes. So that's another thing. And I think that being speedy has been one of the things that has really helped me in my career, is the turnaround time that I have. And I get right to it with, turning a project around or revising it. But it's really just kind of like saying, okay, I know I'm not quite happy about this, but I'm going to put it out there and see what other people think. People will be brutally honest with you, especially the internet. They're not going to hold back. Believe me. I have, starting on YouTube, I've heard everything that's out there, right? Like, you're not going to say anything that's going to surprise me. But, when you work with people, they're nicer than that. And they want to help you solve something too. So if you think it's at a point worth sharing, share it with somebody and see from that point on, if you need to take any further steps. And don't be surprised if you come back and tweak things as you go. I'm always tweaking things. I did this, that presentation that I showed you about a week ago, right before Monica messaged me. I put it together. And then throughout the week, I've just been like, oh, I could change this. I could add that, because that's what perfectionists do. We never stop perfecting, right? But, the final product is the final say. So that really helps put a kibosh in the whole process. Because if somebody is like, oh, it's good, I'm like, oh, okay, well, then we're done. Good, good, we're done. I don't have to continue anymore. You're happy, I'm happy. As long as they're happy, that's all that matters. Okay, Mackenzie.
Hello.
Hello.
So I was curious what your technology workspace looks like. Do you use Mac or Windows? What types of cameras, or do you have a dream setup that you're still looking to achieve?
I would say I pretty much have my dream setup. I sold my car when I moved out to California. I hit a deer going 70 miles per hour and it totaled the car. And when I got it back, I was like, I'm just going to sell it and buy a computer. So I bought a Mac. I bought a Mac Pro and had the dream set up and was with Mac for several years. And then they started, then Steve Jobs died. I'll be honest. Then Steve Jobs died and things took a turn in the Apple realm, and updates became really weird, and it became hard as a professional to rely on Mac. And so I had to make the decision to switch over to PC, and I've been so happy ever since. I've never wanted to look back more in my entire life, knowing the capabilities that I have with a PC. Now, with that said, if you're not PC or tech savvy, then obviously that can be daunting. I built my own PC. It's kind of like a giant Lego. You know what I mean? There's no instructions though. I kind of looked online and bought similar parts and tried to do my own thing. It was a great learning experience. If that's something you feel comfortable doing, you are in business when it comes to tech, because there's way more available to tech from a PC standpoint. I use something called a Stream Deck right here to do different sound effects, which you might have heard from the beginning, you know, things like a nice little laugh track or something like that that people can hear during the podcast. And then it's also got other things on there, but it's also a productivity thing, right? Like I can change apps on there, do that type of stuff. I also use this. It's a Tartarus from Razer. It's a Razer gamer peripheral. I use that and set hotkeys. So in Photoshop and all of the Adobe products, there's a million hotkeys, and I don't like having to do the claw to try and hit them all. So if I can make a macro out of Command C or whatever it may be and have a simple one button click, that speeds up productivity for me. As far as cameras go, right now I'm on a Razer Keo Pro. This is a Shure mic, a Shure podcast mic. I recommend them for all types of audio stuff. And then I also use like a Canon D, to do some photography and some video. But most of the time I'm creating stuff digitally from scratch through Illustrator or something like that. So, Ben.
Hey, what's going on?
What's
so
up?
I actually have 3 questions. So the first one is, if you're a video game streamer, I was kind of thinking about doing that as like a side and just a side job, but I'm curious if there's like enough money to do that professionally and not be like a giant YouTuber in order to do it. The second thing I was wondering is, as an undergraduate who only has a crappy computer and not a lot of money, like how do you, when you work for these different companies, get enough equipment, you know, without a paycheck right away to do the things that they want you to do? The third thing I was wondering is your time management, because you clearly run like a company, you're a video game streamer, you do all these things. How do you manage all of that? How do you manage your time? You must be like, no offense, but like a workaholic. And like, I don't want to live that way. You know, I don't want to live that way.
Yeah. No, I completely understand. So I'll try and hit them in the order that you asked them. So video game streaming is another one of those really saturated markets. I'll be brutally honest. You either have to have a good personality or you have to be really good at a video game. Those are the two things that will really help you in that space. Something that's maybe a little easier, podcasting, obviously, if you're into content creation. Talking about video games obviously is a little easier than playing about them. So with that in mind, if that was what you were planning on doing, perhaps it's not necessarily the idea of playing any video game, but playing a niche video game. You know, if it's any video game, right? Like if you go on Twitch right now and search for Fortnite, there's 1,200 people streaming Fortnite, if not more. So the likelihood of you showing up at the top, very, very, very slim. But if you're, maybe streaming something like Super Mario 64, and there's only 4 people streaming that, you're going to build an audience like we've built, a community. And that's what's going to have people coming back to you, supporting you. So do you have to be a big streamer to get revenue? No, but you do have to have a good community. Okay. It's not just something where you can sit there and stream to one person or stream to mom and expect to get the, have something worth it, right? You've got to build something. And the easiest way to do that through video games is through a niche video game right now. That's the best way to do it. Second question you asked was what again?
So like if you're an undergraduate that only has
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So they provide a computer for you. They'll provide a laptop for you with all the stuff on there. Don't think that when you go into your first job, if it's a corporate position and you've been hired on, that you're going to have to bring your own computer. You won't do it. They'll have something for you. If you're a freelancer, that's not the case. You need to have your own stuff. How would I go about doing that? Adobe has a lot of student programs, and there are a lot of student programs to help with getting up and up off the ground with that type of thing. That's something that I would look for before you lose that credential, right? Try and grab something if you can. I had to take out loans, of course, to afford some things. That might be something that you have to do as well. I took out a credit card, helped my credit report, got some things that I needed for doing stuff freelance, and was able to pay it off in a short amount of time, because I had another job. And I know your final question was about being a workaholic, and I think that when you're passionate about something that you do, it doesn't seem like work. And I you might have heard that a lot, and I think that's true. I love playing video games and love talking. You might have figured that out as we keep talking here, and I've got no problem with it. I do it for a living, right? I talk to people on a podcast for a living, and have talked to clients and stuff like that, and given advice for a living. So I think that it's not really work when you're doing something that you truly love. And I know that in the long run, these types of things are going to be beneficial for me. I don't expect any one of you guys to work a 12 to 12 or anything like that. I definitely take time off and have my own fun time and whatnot. I think that's super important. I think the biggest thing to remember is that if you're working for a corporate position, you're getting paid on a 40-hour work week. Okay. Just remember that. That's what your salary is based off of, is a 40-hour work week. So if they're consistently asking you for 60 hours every week of your job, that's a huge red flag. And that's taking advantage of you, your time, and your value as a worker. And so don't do that. Set a firm boundary. They can't force you to work outside of those hours. So if you can't do it, you can't do it, right? Like that's something that I've had to put my foot down in the corporate world and say, no, my day ends at this time, or my day starts at this time. So hopefully that answered your question. I think we're on Natasha.
Hi.
Hi.
So my question is, if you have like repeated content or only like limited products, like what have you done that works best to boost new engagement on things like that?
So obviously a new design every once in a while doesn't hurt. So if I, for example, I was continually doing new designs for my stickers and trying out new things. Oftentimes I would just do something, put it out on Instagram, see what the response was, right? Did a lot of people like it? Maybe I'll turn that into a sticker. So I think that for most people, it can be difficult to figure out like where to start and what to push out. and how to keep going with that new engagement. But it's something that never stops. So there's not a moment of new engagement, it's ongoing engagement, right? That's how you make an impact in the space. If I only put out a new design once every month and don't talk to anybody in that month, a lot happens. I mean, you lived through the pandemic. We know a lot of shit can happen in a month or in a week, that completely changes the landscape of absolutely everything. So ongoing engagement is something that is necessary in marketing and growing. It's not something that you can simply just say, phone it in. And I know a lot of marketing professionals come around and say something like, oh, we just need somebody that just step in and do some social media stuff. No. Social media stuff is a full-time job, guys. It is a full-time position. Okay. There are full-time people that say social media manager or community manager or, community content manager. That's their entire job, because it is an entire job. So you can't float around with that like, oh, I'm just gonna do whatever. So as far as how would I drive new engagement, I would just, we do it all the time with a new streaming platform. Maybe we try something out on TikTok. We're streaming live right now on TikTok. That was a struggle to go through, right? But all those struggles that you go through to help with the engagement, a new product, a new design, helps grow your audience. So it's not one thing to help boost engagement. It's everything helps boost engagement. So hopefully that answered. Tara. How are you able to secure the guests you've had on your podcast? Did your background in marketing and social media help? Definitely. I would say that having a background and it has definitely helped guide that process. And then having a professional website as well. I know that sounds probably cliche, but like if you go to Pierce Unlimited or if you go to quitthebuild.com, I'm proud of those websites and I think they look professional. And I think that we present ourselves as professional within those realms. So I think that helps lend credence to our rapport. And as far as securing the guests for them, at the end of the day, I will say this is just general advice for all the jobs I've gotten, all the opportunities I've gotten. It's not what you know, it's who you know. I know you've heard that before, and I wish it weren't true because it sucks. But networking is truly a phenomenal thing. My buddy Brad, who's also the partner for Quit the Build, was college roommates with Don Traeger's son, the co-founder of EA Sports. And after we had built up enough of an audience and built up enough of a rapport with our community, he decided to reach out to Don, reach out to his friend and see if his dad would be interested in doing that. Don was super excited to do it. And Don said, hey, I got a buddy, Roger, that might be interested in this too. And that's how we met Roger. So I know it sounds like, oh man, well, that was lucky. It is. That's how it works, right? You struggle for a long time to do this or that. And then the right person sees that tweet, sees that picture, sees whatever, and says, hey, I like what you're doing there. That's really interesting. And it can change in an instant. So that's why I always say, just put it out there, right? Don't be afraid to do something and see the results. I heard someone say to me one time, don't waste your time putting out something that nobody is ready to see or wants to see. Kind of the idea of if you don't have an audience, then don't put it out there. That's the complete opposite of how to get better at your craft. You need to put it out there. You need to go through those times of, I don't know if this is right? Like we all do. So hopefully that answered you guys' questions. Is there any more questions? Anything that you guys have been, as we were talking?
I think we've covered a huge amount. Thanks so much, Bruno. You've certainly given everybody a lot to think about, and
It's my pleasure.
Especially grateful that you take the time out and when you could be playing with that cute baby.
Of course. Well, I really do attribute the success I have through the education that I've gotten, in the comm department specifically. I think that a lot of it too was the fact that I did pursue a lot of things outside of class. I did learn on my own. So when I was doing a project with Monica, she would stretch me a little bit further than doing something that was just the base. So I feel like I got more out of my education than somebody who just went to class every day, right? Like I was interested in what I was doing.
100%, guys. Bruno was really, you took that motion graphics class from me, and I would always add like the Bruno element, you could put in this little bit of extra. And one of the things that I really particularly noticed about Bruno, and you guys should consider, is when he decided to do his internship, most people are like, oh, is there one in Frederick or is there one in Hagerstown? Bruno went way the heck out to the West Coast. He knew he wanted to explore opportunities in California. So he got himself an internship in California doing motion graphics, and he said he was going to, and he did. And it was, you set your goals and you achieved them. But I'm just, thanks so much for coming and talking. And I assume that if students come up with any questions, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, of course. You can contact me through my website, pierceunlimited.com. All of my stuff is on there. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's LinkedIn. Let me get the stuff for you here. Okay.
Actually, if you want to, Bruno, you can just send me a message on Facebook, and I'll be posting this in the Facebook, the department Facebook page. Yes, I know Facebook is for old people, but yes, it is great for some things. It's the right venue for posting videos like this.
Yep.
So I do hope that everybody here is part of the group. By now you should be. We should have lassoed you in by the time you're seniors anyway.
Yes.
So, but what's nice about it is that we have alumni. Like that's how I got hold of Bruno. I just sent him a note like, hey, Bruno would be cool. We haven't had anybody like him. And I doubt we're going to ever again. Because Bruno, you are a unique person. So again,
thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you for listening to me ramble about everything that I've done since my time at Shepherd.